What's going on, everybody? I hope you're all well, and welcome back to Dragon Age Origins. As always, this is going to be a Codex episode, not a main episode of the Let's Play, so if you're not interested in lore discussion and reading about the game, then click away now and wait for the main episode. Otherwise, let's jump in and get our nerd on. So we should have a decent amount of codexes from that. I saw it pop up multiple times. Let us see here. We have two in Magic and Religion. The Imperial Chantry. There are those who would tell you that the Chantry is the same everywhere as it is here, that the divine in Val Ryo reigns supreme in the eyes of the Maker, and that this fact is unquestioned throughout Thedas. Do not believe it. The Maker's second commandment, magic must serve man, not rule over him, never held the same meaning within the ancient Tevinter Imperium as it did elsewhere. The Chantry there interpreted the rule as meaning that mages should never control the minds of other men, and that otherwise their magic should benefit the rulers of men as much as possible. When the clerics of Tevinter altered the Chant of Light to reflect this interpretation of the commandment, the divine in Val Ryo ordered the clerics to revert to the original chant. They refused, claiming corruption within Val Ryo, an argument that grew until, in 487 Towers, the Chantry in Tevinter elected its own legitimate and uncorrupted divine Valhale, who was not only male, but also happened to be one of the most prominent members of the Tevinter Circle of Magi. This Black Divine was reviled outside Tevinter, his existence an offense to the Chantry in Val Ryo. Considering the Chantry is all about confining and controlling mages so that they are not a threat to humanity, I imagine it would certainly irritate them that there is somebody claiming to be a divine who is a mage. Divines are also usually female, like Andraste was the bride of the Maker, and I'm sure him being male plays a part in the elbow bumping too. After 4 exalted marches to dislodge these rebels, all that the Chantry in Val Ryo accomplished was to cement the separation. While most aspects of the Imperial Chantry's teachings are the same, prohibitions against magic have been weakened, and male priests have become more prevalent. The Circle of the Magi today rules Tevinter directly, ever since the Archon Namarin was elected in 734 Storm directly from the ranks of the Enchanters, to great applause from the public. He dispensed with the old rules forbidding mages from taking part in politics, and within a century, the true rulers within the various imperial houses, the mages, took their places openly within the government. The Imperial Divine is now always drawn from the ranks of the first Enchanters, and operates as Divine and Grand Enchanter both. This is utter heresy to any member of the Chantry outside of Tevinter, a return to the days of the Magisters, which brought the Blights down upon us. But it exists, and even though we have left the Tevinter Imperium to the mercies of the dread Conare, still they have endured. Further confrontation between the Black Divine and our so-called White Divine is inevitable. From Edicts of the Black Divine by Father David of Carinus, 811 Blessed. The Sacred Ashes of Andraste. Only one person witnessed Mafarath's betrayal, Havad the Aegis, a childhood friend of Mafarath. He accompanied his chief to the meeting with the Tevinters, not realizing what was planned. When he understood that Mafarath was giving Andraste over to be executed, Havad, unwilling to draw sword against his friend and liege, placed himself between Andraste and the Tevinter soldiers. The Tevinters struck him down, and Mafarath left him for dead. Like the coward he was. Gravely wounded, Havad made his way to the gates of Minrathous to stop the execution. When he reached it, the terrible deed was already done. The armies of the plains long since dispersed. Havad, cursing his weakness, gathered the earthly remains of Andraste that had been left to the wind and rain, and wept. When his fingers touched the pile of ash, his ears filled with a song, and he saw before him a vision of Andraste, dressed in cloth made of starlight. She knelt at his side, saying, "The Maker shall never forget you, so long as I remember." The song faded, and the vision with it, and Havad was alone. But his wounds were healed. With new strength, Havad took up the ashes of Our Lady, and bore them back to the lands of the Alamari. Fearing that Mafarath's supporters would defile them, Havad took the ashes of Andraste to a secluded place high in the mountains, and there he carved from the living rock an urn to hold them. Time passed, and the whereabouts of the urn faded from memory. Perhaps it was the Maker's will that only the most worthy should find his beloved's final resting place. Now, we have only the legends, such as that of the Chevalier's Lothair, who quested to find the urn to save his dying daughter, and either found it in time to cure her, or returned 100 years after her death. The ballads end less than certain on that point. From Thedas, Myths and Legends by Brother Genetive. So Havard, Mafarat's best friend who he snaked out, eventually took those ashes somewhere in the mountains. And it seems like we're gonna have to join in on the hunt for those since Aliman is sick. Culture and history. The Chasind. The Chasind Wilders have lived in the Kakari Wilds since the first wars with the Alamari drove them southward a millennium ago. According to their own lore, they had always been a forest-dwelling people that adapted quickly to their new home. Game and fish are plentiful in the wetlands, and the Chasind thrived. For a time, they and the hill-dwelling Avars were true threats to the northern lowlands. The Tevinter Imperium had arrived and was hard-pressed to keep back the waves of invasions from the south and the west. The fortress of Ostagar was built specifically to watch for Chasind hordes venturing north of the tree line. It was not until the legendary warrior Hafta soundly defeated the Chasind in the first half of the Divine Age that the question of their ability to contest the lowlands was settled permanently. Today, the Chasind are considered largely peaceful, though their ways are still primitive compared to our own. In the Kakari wilds, they live in strange-looking huts built on stilts or even built into the great treetops. They paint their faces and are split into small tribes ruled by shamans like those amongst the Avars. There are many tales of these shamans having learned their magic from the witches of the wilds, witches that inspire as much terror as they do awe and gratitude, even if there is no definitive proof they exist. In particular, the tale of Flemeth, the greatest witch of the wilds, is celebrated amongst all tribes. While there is no way to know how many there are in the wilds today, few travelers that pass through the forest tell of Chasind eking out an existence even in the frozen wastelands of the far south. One can assume that should the Chasind ever organize themselves once more, we might have reason to fear them here in Ferelden. We ignore them at our peril. From Ferelden Folklore and History by Sister Patrine, Chantry Scholar. Well, we do have one proof that Witches of the Wilds exist. She's walking around in our party. Characters. Sten. Either you have an enviable memory or a pitiable life to know nothing of regret. The northern islands are remote, lush jungles that harbor cities rumored to be the most extraordinary ever built. These are the lands of the Canary, lands that no foreign eyes ever see. Only the stories of 3 exalted marchers waged against the giants have reached the south, until the arrival of Sten. The stoic giant in the cage was surely the strangest thing the people of Lothering had ever seen, until the Blight struck. A stoic giant is a very apt description of Sten. Books and Songs. Adventures of the Black Fox. Born Lord Remy Vascal in 863 Blessed, the Black Fox was a dashing thief and rogue who went on to inspire so many tales of his exploits that it is nearly impossible to determine today which are true and which are merely fabricated legend. Despite coming from nobility, he has become something of a hero of the common people. His initial exploits involved ridiculing the tyrannical and powerful Lord of Valshavin. Wearing a mask, he would appear in public and disrupt the Lord's plans to the point that the Lord angrily put a huge bounty on the life of this cunning fox, the origin of the nickname which stuck. That the primary bounty hunter who took the job, Carolus, ended up becoming Remy's lifelong partner in crime, only after nearly killing him several times, is one of the most popular tales told in taverns today. The story is often exaggerated to make Remy appear initially buffoonish, until Carolus becomes so furious at the Black Fox's inexplicable ability to survive that the cunning Remy gains the upper hand, which impresses Carolus so much that the bounty hunter joins him. Now I wonder if this is a reference to Skyrim, or if Skyrim is a reference to this, because it's the Grey Fox in Skyrim, right? And it seems like very similar names and certainly origins with the huge bounty. I remember if you put on that cowl of the Grey Fox in Skyrim, you have like a 6-star GTA wanted level for as long as you have it on. After years of terrorizing the Lord's men and foiling his tax collectors, a favorite pastime of Remy's according to the Orlesian commoners, Remy was supposedly betrayed by his lover Savannah de Montfort, in some versions of the tale a mage of the circle no less, and captured. After more than a year of torture, Remy was rescued from prison by his compatriots, including a repentant Savannah, and together they escaped Orlais. In this period of Remy's adventures, he appears almost everywhere in Thedas. As his legend grew, more innkeepers and merchants were happy to claim that the Black Fox had visited their village or establishment and performed some legendary feat. the tales are to be believed, Remy led the Lord's men on a merry chase. He became embroiled in political intrigue in Navarra, was hunted by the crows of Antiva, and then kidnapped by a powerful mage Intervinter. In each situation, Remy escaped death at the last moment, foiled the evildoer, and improved life for the poor and downtrodden. Then, inevitably, he rejoined his band of adventurers and moved on to the next land. His companions Corollas and Savannah, the wise dwarf Bolek, and the tempestuous knight Sir Clementus have each spawned their own individual legends over the years. The stories all agree that, at some point, the Black Fox disappeared. He and his fellow adventurers voyaged into the heart of the Arlathan forest, seeking the sunken city of the elves, and never returned. Many more are the tales that expand on what ultimately happened to them in that forest, and postulate on how they could someday be rescued. From The Adventures of the Black Fox by Gaston Garol, 911 Dragon, Arlathan is the ancient homeworld of the elves. It is a lost city. The Black Fox in Dragon Age is essentially a mixture between Robin Hood and Indiana Jones, it seems. The First Blight, Chapter 1. Thedas is a land of fierce diversity, from the assassin princess of Antiva to the faded griffins of the Anderfels. But in my travels, I have found one tale that unites the people of this land. It is a story of pride and damnation, and although the telling differs, the essence of the tale remains the same. At the height of its power, the Tevinter Imperium stretched over much of Thedas, uniting the known world under the rule of tyrannical magisters. It is said that the old gods whom the magisters worshipped gave them the knowledge of blood magic, and the magisters used this forbidden power to cement their rule. The blood of elven slaves and humans alike ran down imperial altars to fuel magister greed. The tale of their excesses so horrifying that one can only be grateful that blood magic is prohibited today. But all that stands tall must eventually fall. Perhaps they foresaw their ruin, or perhaps their pride knew no bounds. But whatever the reason, the magisters dared to open a magical portal into the Golden City at the heart of the Fade. They sought to usurp the Maker's throne, long left unattended in the Golden City after the Maker turned his back on his creations. They would storm heaven itself with their power and become as gods. This is what the Chantry, in its oft-exercised tendency to understate, refers to as the second sin. According to most versions of the tale, the magisters did indeed reach the Golden City and walked into the home of the Maker, where no living being before them had dared or been able to tread. But humanity is not meant to walk in heaven. The magisters were wicked with pride and other sins, and their presence tainted the Golden City. What once was a perfect, holy citadel became a twisted home of darkness and nightmares. The magisters were expelled back through their gateway and cursed for their treachery. As the Golden City had been tainted, so were the magisters twisted and transformed into things of darkness, the very first of the Darkspawn. The Golden City, once a shining beacon of the heart of the Fade, became the Black City, a reminder of all that man's pride has cost. From Tales of the Destruction of Thedas by Brother Genetive, Chantry Scholar. So the second sin is them usurping heaven, and the first would be Mafarath burning Andraste at the stake. And I believe that is the end of the codexes, which is good, because my voice is failing me. I am progressively getting more sick as the days go on, actually. I might be due a break here for a couple days if my voice is going to keep cutting in and out. However, I am, I think, 4 episodes ahead, so I can afford to take a day or 2 off, so I might do that. We'll see. Anyways, that's going to wrap for this episode, guys. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe, leave a like and a comment. If you want to support the cause and help improve the channel, there is a tip link in the description below. Otherwise, stay tuned and I'll see you guys soon with more Dragon Age Origins. Have a good day, guys. Take care.